Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 65 of the Audible Farm Podcast, and this week's episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa, and it is some divine beans. I tell you what, it's super good coffee. I drink it every single morning, sometimes at night even. Andrew over at Couchtown loves music. He's a musician himself, so he wanted to take up the opportunity to sponsor the podcast and offer everybody 20% off just for listening to this podcast. All you have to do is go to www.couchtowncoffee.com and then find a coffee you like. When you make an order, make sure you mention the code word Betty. The code word is Betty this week. You'll save 20%. That will save you 20% from December 12th all the way through the 16th. No, that's not right. The 12th through the 18th. There we go. So you can save 20% from the 12th through the 18th this year. Just enter the code word Betty. 20% off of your order of Couchtown Coffee. That makes a good holiday gift. I gave away a bunch of it last year for Christmas. Kind of just started shipping it around. So, hey, you know what? Check it out. Couchtown Coffee, www.couchtowncoffee.com. The code word this week is Betty. And why is the code word Betty? Because he's back. John Wah's back. He's coming back to talk to us about some things, new stuff happening in the Betty camp. I haven't really been talking too much about it on the podcast, a little bit here and there, but John kind of fills us in. I grill him about what he really wanted to get out of Three Finger Betty when it originally started, and kind of that sort of stuff. He's joined another band too. He's joining forces with The Sleepover, and they're gonna be a 4-person band now, so that's really cool. Hopefully we can catch those guys live sometime when they get the 4-people thing hammered out. Sleepover just released a new album recently, so check that out too. Hey, this is episode number 65 with John Wah.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
All right, he's back. John Wah's joining us again. I'm still tangled up here. John.
I tied him up.
We're
in his car right now.
Where did we record the last one? Your place.
My house.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm more sober this time.
Is that going to be good or bad?
Who knows?
All right. So, you and I have been playing guitar together. In Three Finger Betty for quite a while. We're
pushing 3 years.
3 years now. So, it's kind of crazy. How many people have you played with that kind of longevity on the opposite end of a guitar?
Like other guitar players? Or?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Nobody. All right.
Seriously. I'm the only guitar player in the Shit Kickers, so
yeah.
I've played with those guys for a long time. But for before you, Betty was just 3 people. I was the only guitar player, so.
Yeah. Honestly, like Betty, if you look at Betty's first show, it's very Shit Kicker-esque.
Yeah, because it was the Shit Kickers without Kale.
Yeah. That's kind of funny how that transformed. I think we might have talked a little bit about that in the prior podcast. But you've got other endeavors going on. I wanted to make light of the fact that you are now also going to be splitting your time with another band. Mm-hmm. And it's somebody that I've talked to before on the podcast, but it's The Sleepover.
Yes.
Yeah. So how'd that all come about?
Clint's in The Sleepover, so we obviously Three Finger Betty and Sleepover are sister bands.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
just buddy up. And
we buddied up. And then Emery, when Sleepover was making their second album, Pajamas in Public, he asked me to cut a guitar solo for a track.
Oh, cool.
Called Why People Die.
Yeah.
So I went and did that, and that was fun. And then I think they'd been I don't know if that was like a little see how I did kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was.
Or maybe
it wasn't.
Maybe they didn't even know they needed you
Yeah.
around or wanted you, and then that was your weird foot in the door or
Yeah.
something.
It sounded like they'd been talking about a second guitar player to fill out the sound and somebody to play more leads.
Yeah. Yep.
And he asked me, at first I turned him down because I didn't think their time would work out. And
Yeah. It's,
he tried some people, and then the circumstances in my life, my time management situation changed, and he asked me again. I said yes. I was able to do it.
that's cool, man.
So I did it.
Yeah, I think that's probably maybe like one of the biggest barriers people have to face as far as being musicians and making a band is finding somebody else with enough time that's free to do that.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody's especially as of the last few weeks, nobody's. If you've been listening to the podcast, nobody's too. I don't know how to say it. Everybody's well aware of the fact that I'm busy, but it's funny because I don't know. I make time for stuff, so I don't know. How busy are you? I guess you'll make time for the stuff you want to
if
do.
you really want to do it,
if
you'll find
if
time.
you have time. So that's that's another way to look at it. It's it's commendable because you do spend quite a bit of time playing in a plethora of bands, and to take the time to sit there and learn all the music is I mean, it's an endeavor, man.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, though, because I get to help write the third album, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be really cool.
I don't have to worry about lyrics or singing,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, man. I mean, you kind of do it all in Three Finger Betty. I mean, you do the songwriting. I would say you do I would say 99% of it because you pretty much present it to us and we fill in the gaps.
Yeah,
but it's
I don't
already.
I don't write drum and bass parts.
Yeah, it's already pre-written. You give me kind of the green light to do anything that I want to for the most part, which is pretty cool. As long as I'm not going
Yeah,
fucking nuts, I guess.
I go as nuts as you want. I'm not. It's not a tech band. It's a see what happens. Rock and roll should be dangerous, right?
And I was thinking about that actually. Like, we've been playing together quite a while. This is like the first band I joined publicly was Three Finger Betty. And as you look at bands with longevity, with like the same lineup of people that have been playing for X amount of years, there's not too many bands out there with the same lineup for as long as we've been together playing shows.
No.
At least not currently. There are probably handfuls out there that can eclipse what we have right now, but
I feel like some bands break up, and then the same people sometimes form another band with a different name.
yeah, I mean there's a lot of that. And that's another tough one. Is it's like I think the toughest part about that would be like deciding who has what creative rights to take what songs where and stuff like that, or what do you just leave it all behind and start something fresh, or
Yeah, that's tough.
yeah, man.
Like we play 2 or 3 Shit Kickers songs in our set,
Yeah,
so here and there,
yeah. I mean that's
because
just
I wanted to keep playing them.
yeah. I mean that's just the virtue of you being in both bands and being one of the main writers of the Shit Kickers. I mean, you and Kale probably split the duty on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you end up with this situation where you're like, I wrote this song, it's pretty cool, let's take it somewhere else and see what they can do with it. And it's an homage, not necessarily like we all broke up and I'm taking this song with me. Which either way, like, I don't even know how I would do that if that ever became a thing. I mean, like, I don't know.
I'm sure that's different for every band.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I always thought it'd be kind of cool to have like random band playing different random band's song, and you can just be like, dude, we're playing this band song, and it's cool because they're playing across town tonight at a different show. But
I always wanted to, bands we play with a lot, like TV Cop or whoever.
yeah,
Astro Bastards, or learn one of their songs. Don't tell them. And
Yeah.
bust it out in front of them.
oh yeah, oh well, it'd be funny. It'd be kind of suck to like,
Hopefully you don't piss them off.
yeah, I think from like a performer's aspect, it'd be a little bit difficult if they like pulled the rug out from under you on like one of your best songs and played it like prior to you getting on stage,
I guess that's true, but
But at the same rate, like I don't know if that'd be an issue for Betty because we've got like 20 plus songs, or whatever it is. I mean, it's a pretty big stack. But I guess I talk about this with some people. If you want to fill up time with punk music, you got to write a lot of songs, man.
you just got to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's it's there's enough variety in a basic formula. It's sometimes there's spurts and you can just crank 4 or 5 out.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know too much about that. Most of the stuff that I end up like quote unquote cranking out, I don't ever record because it's I don't know. We talked about it a little bit the other night, but like I guess the general gist is I just am shy about being like, what do you think of this? Because I'm just don't know how people are going to interact with it. Because I mean, you've brought songs to Betty practice, and we're just like, hey, let's try this out. And we try it out, and it doesn't seem to fit. And you took it over to the shit kickers, and it kills. You
And it
know?
works.
And yeah, and it just is what it is, I guess. So it's not always a bad thing to present your idea to someone else, I guess. But
Yeah, it's hard, and there's as far as I'm concerned, if it's a band I'm in, I'd like everybody to like at least halfway or most of the way enjoy what they're doing or playing,
Yeah.
because I guess why would you want to be in a band where like, oh, I'm in this band, I just play in this band, it doesn't inspire me at all, whatever.
yeah, oh,
It's like, why are you doing it then?
I'm playing all this stuff. It's pretty much just work, and like I get what you're
Like,
saying.
why are you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoy what I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't drive halfway across the state,
Exactly.
every week to do it.
We're not getting paid
Yeah.
for this.
Well, I mean, we are, but I mean, not the show we're at today because we're doing a benefit for Toys for Tots, which is actually pretty baller. I didn't think there'd be A, this many people here, and B, this many toys. It's friggin' wild.
Pretty successful so far.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well give the place a shout out. We're over at Woody's right now, on the east side of Des Moines.
Yep.
And it's pretty cool. It's a nice little place. I've never been here before, but it's always nice to get out to a new place. It's also cool to play at a new place. It always seems like a little bit of a struggle to find a place to play, or like a set of bands to fit in with. Because I mean, we've discussed this in private, but Betty is like not quite punk, but not quite metal.
Are we the redheaded stepchild of the scene?
Oh man, I don't know. It's weird because we're like punk, but we play solos and stuff, and Clint plays 900 beats per minute on like a humongous kit, and he makes it sound like Iron Maiden punk. It's wild.
I was talking to the Eleanors, Cheyenne and Seth, last week at the sleepover show. They were on it.
Okay.
Cool band. If you haven't seen the Eleanors, go check them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about tonight, and it's like, yep, Betty, and we're going to play with a bunch of heavy metal bands, but that's okay because we're just metal enough to fit in.
Yeah.
But we're just punk enough to fit in on your show, too.
And it's such a weird thing because it's like a benefit, but also, it's a benefit to us having that kind of music coming out, but it's also kind of somewhere in this like weird range where it's like, I don't know if you can, it's hard to define us. Like I don't know, on some of the social media, I just like the description is face melting punk, which like, I don't know.
That works.
It works. Yeah. I mean, punk music generally doesn't have somebody just ripping solos like you do, but at the same rate, it just is what it is.
It can, though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely can. I mean, there's no rules to anything that's going on here. But it's also kind of weird when you're at a show and it's like, man, I don't know if I fit in with it. If this music fits in with it, is this going to be off-putting to people because most of them came here to hear a certain style of music and this is like slightly different. They're going to be like, or maybe you'll run into the situation where they're like, oh, I like this, because I never get to hear it.
You never know. We this was a sleepover show 2 weeks ago. We were at Lefties, and this is not a disrespect. The other bands were perfectly talented. One of them had a phenomenal guitar player, but the flyer said punk rock show, and again, everybody's definition is different. But I was thinking sleepover, like we were the only punk band on the punk show, was how I felt, and that's not a big deal. And then some people came up to us after and basically said the same thing, that they were glad they stuck around because they wanted to see a punk band and we were the only punk band, in their opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another one where like the genre splitting is a thing that anybody can get into debates.
I'm old enough now. I don't know what the difference between emo and
that's
punk and what all this is.
Is your
what
definition
people call hardcore to me is different than what I see at what shows called hardcore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that just like you said, you and I have like a 8 to 10 year ish plus age disparity. I don't know what it is. It's somewhere in there, but it's like we have that age.
I'm the old man in the band.
With age comes wisdom. So we have this like age disparity of sorts, but like your definition of punk is from a whole like different set of
Yeah.
bands than my definition of punk is.
Exactly.
But at the same rate, like there's no reason we can't just mix the two definitions together and
Yeah,
come up with something
I'm,
new.
I'm just old enough. Yeah, like punk to me is the late 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah, and you know,
At least that's the core of it.
yeah, and I grew up like with the, I don't want to say watered down, but it was like the generic punk bands where it's like, oh, well, this is the Ramones, they're punk, and this is the Clash, they're punk, and this is Sex Pistols, they're punk, and it's like, okay, and then, but like I'm like growing up listening to, you know, Newfound Glory,
Yeah.
Sum 41, and like all the
Yeah, that wave.
stuff that's ending up on like the pop punk end of it, you know.
When I was in high school, I mean, Nirvana was a punk band originally. So,
Yeah.
you know, all that broke, and, you know, Sonic Youth and all this, but it wasn't like, you know, it's not like the Dead Boys. It's not like any of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all music. It's all rock and roll at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You like it or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to put it down to basics, it's like, yeah, I mean, how many genres of music would there be, you know? Like,
Exactly.
it's even tough to break that down because it's like,
We're all playing power chords.
for the most part, yeah, that's what's been going down. But that's not even anything to like diss on, because I've seen lots of bands pull out goofier stuff than what we're doing, and it's still just music by the end of the day, like you said. I mean, some of it, like you said, is more enjoyable. You and I have discussed seeing bands where it's just like, I mean, this isn't my favorite kind of music, but that guy's playing guitar in a way that I don't know if I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this intriguing, is the fact that you get to see somebody do something that you may or may not be able to do.
Yeah, who was, forgot the band we played with our last show, whoever they were. But they were, I think they labeled themselves as trans punk.
Okay.
But they had this guitar player who was like this hippie looking guy, and he was just shredding it up.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's like, he's cool.
Yeah.
That was another situation. No disrespect to them. They did good at what they did. It wasn't my thing, but I'm like, well, that guitar player was great, though.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of what we're discussing here is might be like a hot button issue, but at the same rate, I don't think it should be such an issue because I don't know. I guess I enjoy going to shows, and if you enjoy going to shows, you're going to have a positive attitude about seeing a band that might not be in your wheelhouse, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I've tried to drive home as much as possible in the podcast when I talk to people, is just, you know, like how positive can you be about what's going on? And it's nothing like, you don't have to be fake positive and throw on a smile, but like I don't know. It's just such a tough deal because there's not any competition, but there still feels like some sort of, like everybody has like some sort of solitude, you know, in the matter or something.
I think at the end of the day, you don't have to go around telling everybody in the scene that a band you happen to not personally like sucks. It's not that they suck. You just don't like them.
Yeah.
You don't have to work against them. Just you don't have to go to their show.
Somebody once told me when I was just like, well, you know, this band sucks, you know, and you're a kid and you're like, Def Leppard sucks. And they're like, Def Leppard didn't write the music for you. And it's like, well, that's true. You know, like if you don't like it, it wasn't made for you, you know? That's just what it comes down to.
You know, there's some bands that everybody seems to agree on that universally suck. But
Well, I mean, and that's the other thing, with age comes wisdom again, where like the older I get, the more I realize these bands when I was younger, and I was just like, man, I don't like these guys. And then you grow up and you're like, yeah, it's not so bad, you know? Yeah, this person's actually a good singer-songwriter or whatever, you know? And the reason I don't like them is probably nonsense. I mean, I don't want to just like call anybody out, but like Bob Dylan was always one where it's just like, I can't stand this, you know, and I don't know, I can't do it, but at the same rate.
And it's funny because I wouldn't do this if Bob Dylan's one of those. I probably wouldn't be doing this if I didn't listen to Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and so like there you go.
So,
but it's the same rate.
I
Like
just went and saw Bob Dylan.
the guy's like insanely good at like making songs and music about all sorts of anything.
His voice is what it is. The best review of Bob Dylan I ever heard was one of his more recent albums. Somebody's like, yeah, it's good. It's Bob Dylan. It's uninspired. But then again, Bob Dylan has forgotten more about music than anybody else will ever know.
Yeah, I mean the dude's played so much stuff, and it's crazy. And I even find like it's to the point where I find songs where it's just like, oh, this is a good song, and then you're like, oh, Bob Dylan wrote this song, and then you're like, son of a bitch, like,
Yeah?
the guy got me, he got me, you know, okay. And then you just gotta admit it to yourself, like, all right, this is good, you know. But it's also fun to have like guilty pleasures where there's like music that you listen to that might not be in your wheelhouse, where it's just like, I don't care, I like this anyways, you know.
I might have admitted it on the last podcast, but I like my power ballads.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I could write one and take it seriously, but some of them, I don't know why they work on me, but they do.
Ours would probably come out something in like the Steel Panther area.
Yeah, that's why I don't try to write one.
Well, that's the thing, though, is I also like to talk about this, where like if you actually really enjoy something, it gives you the opportunity to make fun of it and know that you're not gonna like. You're not saying it maliciously. So I like 80s music. It's like my favorite stuff ever. It's what I grew up on. The dudes were all shredding guitar. There was tons of hair, and I always was like, oh, I want to grow my hair out. Now I don't have enough hair to grow out, but that's another story.
I'm right behind you.
Well, at least you got the ponytail, so you still got one.
It's skin on the top.
That's like security cameras at gas stations and stuff.
Yep.
And I was just like, what? I hate these things. Like, this should be illegal. But anyways, I was talking about like seeing myself up on the TV there behind the register. Terrible. It's like, oh God, I want to wear hats more often, But ballads and stuff like that. I love 80s music. It's all awesome. I'm big into all of the hairball bands and stuff like that. But it's also when you get to hear some of those ballads, you're just like, what is this? You can like make fun of it a little bit at the same time because you're like, this is just cheese.
It's a cheese fest.
Yeah, but that's everything though. I feel like everything eventually becomes a caricature of what it initially was. For example, like you and I both like pro wrestling, and we've seen it happen in waves in pro wrestling where eventually everything just becomes too much of exactly what it is, and it's just over the top, and it's not as cool as it once was. And it's I hate to be that guy, but it's still just like the way it works sometimes.
Yeah, like I had to quit watching WWE. It was just, it got so terrible.
Yeah, well, and I don't.
And there's people that love it. It just, for me, I'm old school, and I'm like, what is this crap you're doing? This doesn't appeal. This isn't pro wrestling for me.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that comes back down to what's everyone's definition of pro wrestling. Because when did you start watching it? Were you watching Hulk Hogan doing leg drops and stuff, or
in the early mid 80s, I was fortunate enough that my family got cable.
Cool.
And I got WTBS and USA at the same time.
Nice.
So I first found the old NWA WCW 605, baby.
Nice.
Saturday night.
That's
so
cool.
I got into all those guys, and Ric Flair and Tully Blanchard.
Yeah, dude.
And then
That's cool.
on USA, there was, I'm young. Rocky III's the biggest movie ever, so everybody knows who Hulk Hogan is.
Yeah.
You find him on USA Network, and now, boom, it's WWF time.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I grew up during like the Attitude Era, so we're talking.
Which got everybody back into it.
Yeah, the mid-late 90s. I probably started watching. I didn't have cable at my house, but I would always go over to somebody's house on Sunday mornings and watch like their recap show. I don't know if it was Superstars or whatever it was called, but you'd catch up on the week in wrestling. And those, that's one of those things with those recap shows. Once you put all that post-production in there, you can make it look as cool as you want. And I was always just like, dude, these guys are so
There's no
cool.
botches on the recap.
Yep. And so then you like actually get to finally watch it, and you're like, well, this is way different when you watch it on TV than it is if you're just watching a recap show, And I was still just pretty young at the time, but I grew up during the Attitude Era. And that comes back down to like, I started going to shows live, and it's like, well, this is totally not the same thing as what's on TV, but I enjoy this more because it's people it's more tangible. You have a much deeper connection to what's going on.
Indie shows are great because you can interact with the performer. You're 10 feet from them.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God.
And they want you to interact with them. And the worst thing, heel or face, the worst thing that could ever happen in an indie show if the crowd's quiet.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't interact. And that's, dude, I love going to shows and seeing some people like perform over and over and over again, and eventually they're just like, oh, this guy's in the crowd, and I can pick on him a little bit because he's seen me enough and he knows that I act this way, whether or not they're going to be malicious to you. You just go with it usually. And I mean, I've been yelled at and chewed out by wrestlers before at ringside where they just like come out and just scream at me because I'm cheering something else, and it's just like, just get back in the ring, or you just yell something dumb back at them because it's like, well, this is part of the show. And
I forgot who it was, some heel after the show, because we booed him and we were yelling stuff at him. After the show, we saw him like just out, so he was out of character. The show was over, but we walked by and I just went boo, and he laughed and shook my hand and said, "Hey, thanks for playing along, man."
Oh man, I love that kind of stuff though too, because a lot of those people really are just people at the end of the day. Like after I've
They're
met,
performing.
yeah, I've just met so many people. They're all just nice people. They want you to go out and see them and have a good time and do exactly, I don't know, just enjoy what they're doing, and it's really fun. I mean, that was where I think I met you the first time was at a wrestling show here in Des Moines.
Yeah, that's how I met Clint, our esteemed drummer. Is his wife and my wife worked together at Half Price Books. My
cool.
wife had a wrestling shirt on, and Kelsey said, "Hey, do you like wrestling?" And next thing you know, we're watching pay-per-views together.
Oh, that's cool. Back in
And
the
then
day,
I'm like, "Oh, you're in a metal band? Who's this Dark Mirror?" And then I see Dark Mirror, and I'm like, "Oh."
oh yeah, that's crazy. And that was the other thing is like I grew up with Clint, so that was my tie into the band. So believe it or not, pro wrestling brought Three Finger Betty together as it sits
In
today.
a way, it did.
That's pretty awesome. I have interviewed one pro wrestler on the podcast, and I'm trying to find a couple other people that want to sit and talk with me. And I've put out some feelers. Might have some people coming on later to talk about pro wrestling sometime. That'd
Wrestling.
be fun. You know, and that's one of those things where I guess I enjoy it. I don't get to go to as much of it now as I used to because my time is soaked up by so much other stuff. But it's neither here nor there. It doesn't change the fact that I still like it. You know, I got to get to another show sometime. There's been some wildly entertaining shows being booked around the Des Moines area with the two local companies here.
Yeah, I haven't been to one in a while.
I
I feel a little guilty about
I
that
kind
right
of
now.
I kind of do too. You know, 3X Wrestling and Impact Pro
Impact's
Wrestling.
great.
You know, they're great companies. I love them both. I've spent so much time around all the performers that have come in and out of there. You know, not interacted with every single one of them. Some of them get quite mean, and some of them are, you know, very bad guys. And it's like, I wonder if this guy's actually nice, but I never talked to him. But I'm assuming he's nice. You know, he's not, can't be malicious. You know, and it's kind of funny to go to those shows. And I mean, like we used to go back in the day where I don't want to say it was like the heyday, but there was this point in time where there was like hundreds of people at shows. You know, at the Forte Center would just be like packed.
Yeah, I remember a couple of those.
Wall to wall packed, and you know that was tons of fun to go to those shows and see some of the stuff that those guys would pull off because they do it for the crowd, just for the enjoyment of the show. I've got a lot of those on DVDs. I should plow through my wrestling DVDs and see what I got. See if I can find some of those winter matches again.
Yeah, it's too bad. I got a few of those DVDs. I have one where my friend had his kid with him, and he talked his kid into flipping off one of the bad guys. And it didn't make camera, but the commentators acknowledged it. And I was like, yes,
that's funny. That's super funny. That's like the other fun part was like getting you get that color commentary aspect after you were at a live show where you get to hear what the two guys on commentary get to say about what you were doing or what somebody else was doing, you know, but
plus those DVDs, it's interesting to hear because, you know, you can hear your own heckles and yelling at them sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. A well-timed heckle, a well-placed shout and stuff like that. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's not like after you go to enough shows, you start to realize, like, oh, this guy's doing something greasy. I should yell at him because no one else is yelling at him. And it's just like, ref, his foot's on the rope, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
But you just say some of that kind of stuff. But, that's that's just kind of stuff once we'd go to a bunch of shows you start to pick up. And you could hear those once, like you said, once you time them well enough.
You learn how to time them right.
Oh, man. So you got new stuff coming up with the Sleepover. Mm-hmm. We haven't even touched on the new Betty album that is to be released soon-ish.
Should be headed off to the master guy pretty soon.
All right.
A wonderful gentleman named Ben Hall recorded it.
Yeah. Sat down and talked with him recently.
We should be in the final stages of his mixing.
Cool. So,
I mean, what we've already heard, honestly, not to toot our own horn, if we released it as is, I think it'd blow a few people away.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good as it sits.
But after a little fix and then a really good professional master, I think it's going to sound really good.
Yeah, man. I really dig what we got going on here. We may or may not have referenced it, and I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, but this is our second go at it. It was a slightly different experience recording it as far as the style it was recorded. We didn't record to a metronome this time, so we
recorded live.
And and it's funny because some people are like, what? Why would you do that? But I told somebody, Nick Rosendahl, I believe it was, on that podcast, I told him that we recorded to a metronome the one time, and this time we recorded live, and he's like, bands are supposed to record live. They're supposed to all be playing together because that's how a band plays. And I was like, yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get both experiences to see what would go down either way. And I honestly, and it's nothing against either way to do it because each way has its perks for sure. But playing it live, definitely, I feel like the recording that we have really actually captured.
It comes more organic.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more like you
Sounds
went
like
to
us.
like you went to a Three Finger Betty show and listened to us. You know, it's pretty good stuff. It's I mean, of course we're gonna say that because we're on it playing it, and you wrote the majority of everything that we're gonna hear on there, like you said. You know,
Six angry songs.
yeah, man. Like let's hit them with it. You got a name for the bad boy yet?
For the record,
Yeah, hit me.
I believe we're calling it Class Warfare.
Nice,
And I think Clint came up with that.
dude. I like the way that sounds.
Shout out to Tanner Saltzman. Once people see the cover art is incredible.
Oh my god, the cover art's insane. New graphic for Three Finger Betty, slightly less offensive than everything else we've had. So we got that on a T-shirt now. The show we're playing at tonight is going to be the first time we have T-shirts available for sale. So I guess if you want a Three Finger Betty
In time
shirt,
for Christmas, $10.
sweet, yeah, just swing over to a Three Finger Betty show sometime or hit one of us up.
Yep.
Grab
We'll
a
be playing art, some kind of horror Christmas art show thing.
Holiday Hell.
Holiday Hell at the Fremont, December 14th.
14th. Yeah, that's this. I guess let's see here. This
A week
episode
from tonight, right?
Yeah,
now.
so this episode is coming up on. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so it's this weekend. Coming up this weekend is Holiday Hell. You know, or whatever. But there's the promo bit. I'll clip that out and
At the Fremont.
at the Fremont. So that's going to be a good show. I mean, this show is stacked. The show we're at right now.
Damn, 6 bands.
Yeah, it's crazy to go to a show. I mean, you and I have played a lot of shows together. We've played shows where there's 2 bands, and we've had to fill up multiple hours, and it's a pretty big stretch for a punk band writing 3 minutes long songs, you know?
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But we've also
But
played
it's fun.
shows like this, and they both have their benefits, I would definitely have to say. It's nice to play long shows and be able to stretch your legs out and soak up a decent amount of time and make it really worth dragging your gear all the way across town, you know? You get to actually use it for a long time and hold the crowd's attention and stuff like that. Sometimes if you got a little bit of time, you can take a little break and everybody can get rejuiced up and grab a drink and a snack pack and go back on stage. And
Yep.
that's what's your take on that? Because like I mean, as we sit here we're waiting to perform here, kind of just sitting outside recording this, and there's a lot of bands here, but there's a lot of people here, man.
I don't know. I like playing the long shows.
Yeah.
I do, but at the same time, I think with the type of music we play, that 40-minute punch people in the face
Yeah.
probably is
Yeah.
just a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more effective.
I think we've held a crowd for those long shows before,
Yes.
but
But I recall
that gets hard. That's an endurance.
It does take a long time to sit there and just really be focused on something that you're doing, and that goes to say for all the cover bands out there covering 4+ hours a night. You know, that's kudos. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely it's a whole other beast. You don't have the write your own music necessarily, but at the same rate, you still have to play 4 hours worth of stuff. So that's not easy either.
I know it's tough. I like walking around going, "Oh, a band dropped off the show. We'll play double."
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah, and I mean that's not bad. But like you said, I mean we've been to shows where, oh man, this is a heavier show, and we are playing like in the middle of it somewhere, and we don't really fit on this show. But if we pick these 7 or 8 or 9 songs, they fit pretty well, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, getting that almost 40-minute long set where you can just punch people in the face.
Tailor it a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah, and there's every band's probably got songs where they can do that a little bit.
I write a different set list for, say, the Fremont because it's more of a punk crowd
Yep.
than I have for tonight, which is going to be more of a metal crowd.
Yeah, we've got some songs that are a little bit shreddier than others, and
Yeah.
a little bit faster with more drummier drums, and
And like, you never know until you get in there and start reading them. But there's some bars where it's like, I don't think this crowd wants to hear pseudo-political rants
Yeah.
set to power chords.
yeah, exactly.
They
So-
want to hear dumb, funny. They want to hear loud, funny songs.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I get that too, though. That's one reason I always thought like writing music would be A, tough enough, but B, you got to write lyrics to it that people now all of a sudden have this meaning that they're going to draw out of the words that are being attached to the music, and and that's one reason I don't have a problem so much with playing music with you guys and Three Finger Betty and stuff like that, because I mean, if it comes down to politics, I'm sure you and I would have differences, but at the same rate, like, I don't care. Like, like the words you're saying and like the things that are Three Finger Betty has music wise that is done on stage. It's not like mondo offensive in any fashion, but at the same rate, like if anybody gets mad, it's just like, dude, I'm not. Nobody's serious. Like none of this is serious.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I watched a news story. It ticked me off. Didn't matter who was president.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of the songs we play when the last guy was in office.
Yeah, and that's what I say. Like you pick on this guy, you pick on that guy. You're an equal opportunity picker-honor.
That's why South Park's such a great show.
Bingo. Yeah, because they hold no quarter. It's just one of those things where it's just like this doesn't seem to make sense. I'm gonna.
So let's rip on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no kidding. And I dig that, and that's probably got to be one of the toughest things where. I mean, we were talking about it the other night where it's like, where do you draw inspiration from to sing about this stuff? Because eventually the story just stays the same for a while where it's just like, God dang, all the political nonsense is the same and has been the same for so long now that you can't make a political song, it seems like, because you're just yelling about the same stuff that you were yelling about last year or the year before, so like it always seemed like one of those kind of things because or like, is there any low-hanging fruit that you're just like, I should write a song about this, but it's too easy to rip on this? Or
oh yeah,
I mean, like obviously, like
how many songs can you write about Donald Trump?
True, yeah. No, I mean, that's the other thing. I always thought it was kind of funny that I don't have any opinion one way or the other on Donald Trump. Like some stuff he's done is good, some stuff he's done is bad, and that's just most people in general. Like it's people just. That's how things happen. Like some people are going to like some people and some people aren't going to like other people, but
it's hard to explain. Like at the end of the day, all the message, like it doesn't matter which one it is. It's all a distraction.
Yeah, bingo. And that's another thing. This is definitely not a political podcast in any fashion, but it is just what it is. And I mean,
I like to get half schnockered and just start ripping on all of it.
Yeah, and everybody's going to have their opinion, and it's just the way it goes. But that also comes down to like this, music has the ability to tie us all together, even if we might not all agree on the same thing every time, no matter what. And sometimes those like heady differences that people have kind of end up being downfalls when it comes down to bands having longevity like we've had, That's probably one of the other reasons I like being in Three Finger Betty is I don't know if I'm ever going to have another situation where I'm in a band that's as chill as this one. Like nobody has ever been like out of line with anybody else ever, or like said anything mean to anyone, like ever, like not even a little bit. Like I don't know. It's just it's not that happens in every other band or something.
And I talk, people you meet, people you talk to, they're like, well, we got this practice, so we'll play a song, and then the bass player will yell at the rest of us for this, or the drummer will get pissed about this. And I'm just, every time I've heard that, I'm like, why the hell are you in that band?
Yeah, why the hell's everybody getting so mad?
Why would you put up with that?
Yeah, and I mean, I've made the joke before on the podcast where where there's not enough to fight over to make anything that anybody's fighting about worth fighting about. There's not enough attention in the world is going to make me get mad at you for having a different political opinion or playing a different note that I don't want you to play. Like I don't care at all about any of that, especially when like we've talked about there's not enough money, enough anything.
Yeah, there's nothing on the table to make that kind of situation.
No, exactly.
Tolerable.
And I understand like some people are just a little bit more emotional than others, and
True.
I'm maybe a little bit more emotionally reserved than most people because I just don't get worked up over too much anymore, which is
I don't know. There's bands that they go through. They're always switching out members, and every time you meet bands like that, it's like, well, which one of you is an asshole?
Yeah, I mean, that is another thing you can think. But I've hung around people, and let's just point out like an obvious one. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. Dude's like insanely known as just a gaping a-hole through like all of the 80s and into the 90s. And
you missed one note, you're out.
Yeah, I mean, he's just so mean about everything to everyone, and like, oh, I said this to his face, and it's like, why would you do that or whatever? But he still makes good music, and I like what he does. But I probably just wouldn't join a band with him. Like
yeah.
I mean,
Well, the difference at this stage is if you join Megadeth, It's Megadeth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. But like, I get it, and I would never have the chops to play any
I
of
don't
that
know.
stuff. But
And at that point, it's like then you get to the whole like you're just doing this for money.
no, and
But
that's
the situation. Well, if you're joining Megadeth, you're damn right I'm doing this for money.
But I mean, not all of us just have the same thing in mind. I think when we go to play shows, though, and that's you just show up to play the show. You know, it's you want to go out there and play the music that you want to play. Like all of us have to want to be here.
We're a bar band. We're a party band.
Yeah, man.
We're here to sell beer and help people have a good time.
Dude, that's been some of my favorite shows. Was playing a few parties here and there, like house parties and things like that. I don't know if there's ever been any more support that I've gotten at a show other than that.
Oh, basement shows are awesome.
Yeah, man. And that's another situation where literally everybody there wants to be there. Because at the bar, you might run into a situation where it's like, some of these people are just here to drink.
Yeah, we've cleared a room before.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it happens. And I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, and they talk about like bombing and going somewhere, and like they do these like they call them kamikaze shows or something like that, where like the people that are there don't know a show is coming, and then all of a sudden, like all this music comes in, or like comedy is their deal. So there's like all of a sudden there's somebody in the corner like just being like, what are you eating, a steak? You know, and they're just like making jokes about stuff, and it's like, what's this guy doing over here? Is like somebody giving an announcement, or it's like somebody's headlights on, or what's the deal? You know, and they're oblivious to the fact that it's going on, or they're just like, I'm leaving. You know, but I always think about that though too. Like I don't know. It's not like we are an offensive band or have like cleared a bunch of rooms or anything like that, but it does matter. Like we've played shows on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
We've played early shows, late shows. We've played Saturday shows, Sunday shows. I mean, we've played shows every day of the week.
I cannot predict how to draw.
I can't either.
Which show gets you the good crowd? There's no rhyme or reason that I
No,
can see.
because I mean, we've been on like you said, like Tuesday shows where it's like this is packed, like
Yeah.
and it's like why? There's no reason it
Yeah.
should be. There's no any different bands than we would have had on a Saturday night, but it's also that weird economy thing, like who else is playing on a Tuesday night or whatever. But like you said, you can never gauge when someone's going to have the free time to come out or just get the wild hair up their butt and be like, I'm going to go to this show and go check out these bands or whatever. And that's another reason you do it. It's kind of like it's kind of fun because I'm pretty excited to play this show here in a few hours because it's still pretty packed here. I mean, there's not a whole lot of room to park. The parking lot's pretty full, and that's a nice way to keep it. It's cool to actually have the ability to play for shows like that because I mean we've talked about it before, but you and I have played on shows that have been pretty full, and we've played on shows that have been pretty empty. Notably,
We played to the other bands more than once.
so my one that I could recall most specifically out of all that would be when we played at Vaudeville Muse.
Which,
No, wait, no. Valor Ballroom was the one.
Oh, God.
Because yeah, okay. So
that was just worse because the room was so big, and
The
so
room
it
was-
just amplified the fact that nobody was there.
yeah, and it's massively huge. I think you can go on Facebook. There might even be a video of that somewhere on the Three Finger Betty page.
Yeah, there's
but-
one. You
but
can
it's-
see Jim.
it's-
all
it's-
by himself.
It's pretty wild because it was like, well, there's like 14 people here, and that's not awesome. And I don't know whether or not it was poor promotion or if it was too far out of the way or if it was it was set up too quickly or what the deal was. But
I forgot the name of the guy who put that on. I feel to this day, I didn't even take a payout from him because I'm like, you lost your ass on this.
yeah, had to have.
There's you lost a couple grand.
Yeah.
Putting this show on.
That's
Poor guy.
That sucks because that's just one of those deals where, I mean, there was only two bands on that show, us and another band. We covered 2 hours of music. I was only in the band for like 3 or 4 months, and it was one of those kind of deals where it's like, I guess we shouldn't turn this show down. And then it was just like, oh, you're playing 2 hours, and the other band's playing 2 hours. It's like, holy crap. All right.
That was part of it. It's like we couldn't turn it down because even though nobody was there, we got to play at the legendary Valor Ballroom.
Yeah, no kidding, and that's really cool. But we played that show, and believe it or not, we brought a few fans with us, and some of them stayed. And that was the other deal was where you go to play. We get done, we haul all our stuff inside, and you peek in the back door, and you're like, oh, there's 4 people out in the crowd. Like we need to go out there and support them like they supported us because that's just what you got to do. It was a rough night. I can't remember. Do you remember who we played with that night?
Reload.
Reload. Dude, they were good.
Yeah.
Dude, it was pretty cool. I remember hearing some, speaking of Megadeth, hearing some Megadeth songs.
Yep. They did some Metallica.
it's sweet, dude. They killed it, and that's one of those things where it's just like, man, nobody's here to hear this. This sucks.
Yeah.
But that's also comes down to what flavor of music do you like, and that's kind of one of my favorites is anybody with a lot of guitar chops. I guess maybe because I play the guitar, but
Oh yeah, I like guitar music.
yeah, and I mean, that's another thing where, like, I guess if you play piano, people shredding guitar solos might not entertain you, Like, it just is what it is. Or maybe it does. I don't know, because anybody can just be whoever they want to be, I guess. But you ever think that you were going to get to a point with Three Finger Betty like this? Because I know that, like, a couple of the songs from Three Finger Betty have been pulled out from, like, way back in your past. Like, Drunken Church was definitely one that was not originally this.
Yeah, I wrote that, I think, when I lived in Arizona.
Yeah, I want to say there's a video
Just on
of
a
you.
one-off.
There's a video of you guys playing it, right?
I put it over a credit sequence in a short film I made with some people I know. Just that was so random because I just had it. I had the song.
I want to say you showed it to me once.
Yeah.
So you'll have to send me a link to that or something so I can check it out. Because I remember hearing it back in the day and was like, this is neat because this is what the song used to sound like, and what we play like now is completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the same basic thing, but it's like...
Here's Jim walking into the bar.
Nice. Jim, definitely one of our biggest fans in Three Finger Betty. He's also one of the biggest music supporters because I almost guarantee you he came here from a different show.
Probably.
I was at this place watching these bands. They were really, he's always talking to me about music, talking about bands that I have no clue. I have slightest clue what's going on. And I see a lot of shows and see a lot of bands and hear from a lot of bands and get a lot of exposure, but he goes to a lot of shows, man.
Yeah, I want to get back to it. I was about to say, then we got distracted. You asked me about where we're at, Betty. Three Finger Betty has exceeded any goal I ever had
Cool.
for playing in a band. I just wanted to be in a band where I could play the dumb songs I wrote and find a bar or two in town where maybe once a month, and this is what Shit Kickers was, that was all we ever wanted to do. It's like, T-shirts, to this day, we've never had T-shirts or stickers or nothing.
Yep.
We just want to go have fun. And if people like it, great.
Yeah, there's some benefit to that, though, too, not having any merch or stickers or anything. It's like, the Facebook page, you can like it or whatever.
Yeah, I think we've been together 8 years and we have 99 likes.
Yeah, and it takes all the pressure off of it. But, like, you guys have played some pretty cool shows. Like, you guys got to play with the Rumors here in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
As the Shit Kickers. And I remember, like, that ended up being a very good night for you guys. You guys killed it, and people really, really dug what you were doing. So that's...
Yeah, we stole the Rumors crowd, and it worked for us.
That's, and that's comes back down to it. Like, just having that no-pressure situation where it's just like, I don't know, we don't have merch or anything. Just enjoy us hanging out up here, and then, then we're out of here, or we're going to go hang out in the back and... come say hi, I guess, if you want, but whatever. Like, that's...
Now it's to the point with Betty, but you almost got to change the mentality. It's like, okay, well, I can pretty much play a show around Des Moines whenever the hell I want to.
Yeah,
so, well, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Well, can we get booked in Minnesota?
Yeah. And then,
how far can we go?
We have been booked in Minnesota once.
In a couple of years, we need to get back.
Yep. And I mean, we've done the Kansas City thing and Iowa City.
But it's like, okay, how
far can we take this thing?
We did that circle. Well, now, we've been to the Mississippi River. Can we get past it and go to Chicago?
Yeah. And for anybody out there listening, if you have any shows you want to book a punk band that's a little bit on the heavier side that has solos and whatnot, check out Three Finger Betty stuff online. Give us a ringle jingle because we're usually pretty willing to drive a ways to play a show.
Yeah.
Just for fun. Payout doesn't hurt at all, but
gas money's nice.
Yeah, I mean, at least something to compensate for the money expended to get to and from. But that's another thing. Was like I've talked about on another podcast where we have never had a situation that I can recall that like a prior agreed amount of money was not delivered to us on a show. Where like somebody's like, oh, we're gonna pay you this much, and then you show up and they're like, oh, I got this much or whatever. Like,
been lucky with that.
Yeah,
we've never got really screwed over, misled.
Yeah, and I mean that's really awesome because that is always one of those like horror stories of music is that this band got completely taken, or whatever, and they played this huge show and didn't get paid anything, and blah 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 blah. But
we did get screwed over once, but it was a very insignificant amount of money.
Oh, Okay. Well, I guess that's probably why I don't know about it. But that's
And it's been a while. I won't name the names, but we
Oh, yeah.
we pre-sold tickets and never got our cut.
Oh yeah. I remember that story. And then I mean, I might almost chalk that one up to a misunderstanding, but like you said,
It's possible,
it's not
but-
enough money to worry about
Yeah.
the situation. So, but that's the other thing is like we've talked about how we don't always play shows that have the hugest payouts, but we play shows that have payouts. No matter what they are, we'll do it. I mean, today we're playing a benefit
Yeah,
show.
we're
for
not getting
Toys-
paid. It's
Toys
all for kids.
Tots. Yeah, it's awesome. Tons of toys inside. I mean, this is not sponsored or represented by Toys for Tots or anything, but it's just kind of cool that people here donating toys and coming to the show. But we've played a lot of shows to a lot of people. I kind of forgot where I was going with this. I mean, we agreed to get paid on all these shows, and we do usually take the money and just amass it in like
Yeah.
one fund for the band to use as the band needs to use. And that's, we did that for a couple years, and we've got enough to record, mix, and master a full EP,
Yeah. Just ordered new T-shirts and stickers. All the money we've collected paid for that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the best part about it, because we all have just enough income to not worry about like this is just like a hobby for us. So we don't even actually like make any money personally really doing this, other than just like the fun aspect of.
If anybody would like to book us and give us a payout, though, we would happily accept it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple times we've played shows where it's like we're going to drive all the way up here, we'll play this show, we'll provide all of the everything, and people agree to pay us. And then we have taken like partial payouts from our own band purse for that.
Yeah,
but,
I'd say if we get a big payout,
Yeah.
we might as well just. That's a situation where I think it's fair to pocket it at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's just kind of the cool thing. I never thought I was in a band that would play enough shows and just sock the money away until it was just like, dude, we got T-shirts and stuff, and I didn't have to fork over any random money to get these shirts because all the time I invested previously paid for all of this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest things about it. It's you actually get to see all of your hard work coming to fruition through those kind of endeavors, like recording an EP and getting ready to put it out online.
Yep.
That's another thing. So
Hopefully by spring.
I recently had the guys from Marbin on. I had Danny Rabin on my podcast from Marbin, and we talked a little bit about some pretty good stuff, and I kind of wanted to put a bug in his ear about something just to see. But they put their new album out only on Bandcamp. Which, and you're kind of I can see you thinking about it, which it's the same way I thought, where they have all of their other albums on Spotify, all of them. So you can listen to 8 other albums or whatever if you want, but the new one's on Bandcamp. So if you want to get it, you can go buy it on Bandcamp. And everyone's like, well, then I can't play it on Spotify. But there are ways to put stuff on there and play and listen to it.
I'm a dinosaur. I still listen to records.
Well, they do have records too, but like I don't know, they put a debate online as to see what people wanted to say about it, and we've actually had this talk about our new album, whether or not to put it out on Spotify and all streaming services, or whether or not to attempt to sell it, or what we want to do with it, and that's a discussion. At least, I mean, I'd like to get your opinion on that before I put my 2 cents in on that. But what do you think about like that kind of stuff? Because I feel like that's something that's up for debate still.
It is. I don't know. I'd say at our stage, it would behoove us to have it on streaming services for the exposure aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
I don't know, maybe not everybody's like me, but if I go see a band and they're really good, and maybe I'm a little short, but I'll buy the CD before the T-shirt. I'll buy the record because I want the music.
Yeah, man. I mean, that makes total sense. I don't necessarily take as many CDs as I used to from bands and stuff because I don't listen to as much physical media as I used to. I mean, a lot of it's streaming for me because I'm always on the go. But I totally get what you're saying. As far as like where we're sitting now, it wouldn't make too much sense. But for a band like Marbin, that's like kind of in that middle ground where you're like you're pretty popular.
Yeah, you're national, but you're a club band.
Yeah, and they tour all the time, and they're always out places, and people are always buying stuff at their shows because they're worth it and they're good. So for something like that, I was thinking maybe it wouldn't be so bad if like Spotify was always like an album behind. Where it's like when we release our next album, then we'll put our last album
That's not bad
on Spotify.
It's kind of like what movies do. Okay, we put the movie out in the theater.
Yep, and then you got to pay the big money to go see it in the theater, and then after a while, now it's on
Now
DVD.
it's on Blu-ray, so
Yep.
you can pay a little less and keep it.
Yep.
but only after it's been on Blu-ray for 6 months does it hit Netflix.
Yeah, something like that.
So at least they give anybody who wants it, who will buy it, I guess, has their chance before they just give it away.
Yeah, bingo. And I mean, I've always enjoyed the parallel release too, because I mean, our album is available for streaming on Spotify, but if you want to go buy it, there are purchase options too.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you like show up at a show and we don't have any physical copies that are super refined anymore, but at the same rate, like if you come to a show and buy a CD from us, you'll have more songs on it too.
That's right.
So that's like kind of one of the benefits of that. We decided only to upload the handful of songs that were the most fitting to what we were doing, I guess. But and there's nothing there's no right or wrong way to eat that Reese's, I don't think, like
Yeah.
that's a fun topic I wanted to kind of talk with somebody about, and I figured this would be a good spot to talk about, especially since we've got an album coming out soonishly. So, I mean, we're probably thinking the next month, 2 months or so.
I'm thinking spring.
Spring.
Get it
is.
mastered, and then you got to get it pressed and all that. All
Yeah.
takes time.
Yeah, I mean, we've debated having different forms of physical media and things like that, and, so that's kind of cool. I never really thought in a million years I'd be in a band recording something and doing all that kind of stuff, and here I am. I mean, and at what level it is, whatever, but it's still like one of those things. Growing up, you'd be like, oh, cool, this guy plays guitar. And then you start like listening to music live, and it's like, I like these bands, and you're just like, oh, that guy playing guitar is so cool, and well, maybe I should play guitar. And you just never think you're gonna ever get there, and then you're there.
Then all of a sudden you're there.
Yeah, and it's that was another thing where when I first started sitting down playing guitar seriously in my like later 20s. I was like, I'm starting to figure this out, but I don't think I'll ever get in a band. And then I get the option to jump in on some Three Finger Betty stuff, and I like put in the time to sit down, and I learned it all by ear, which is not something that when I took your guys' original EP and learned everything by ear, and then showed up at practice and played all of it, by ear, which is kind of crazy to think. I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. More intensive music might not lend itself to ear playing as much.
It's hard. That's kind of what I did with Sleepover. Emery gave me some music, but basically I took the album and put it in my stereo and turned it up and played guitar along with it.
Yeah, I mean, that works out.
Until I got it. Well, it helps you. I also I'd seen him play those songs live enough. I'm like, okay, well, I already know what key this song's in, so it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, and that was what I figured out, was like once you figure out the key, the rest of it kind of lends itself to what's going on, because you're not doing any like ludicrous exploring of sonic ranges, and
like I think 2 songs I do the suspended third chord shape instead of a traditional power chord. Ooh.
Yeah, ooh. And I mean, I do throw a few variations of power chords in there, like fourth power chords instead of but it's whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. But it's if you really want to hear us kind of goof off and get really like sonically experimental or whatever, like you got to come to a Betty show and stay for the jam.
Yep.
If we're the last band, if we're on a show where we're not pressed for time at all, we'll bust out a jam.
Things might get trippy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember posting that like a punk band that plays like trippy jams at the end of all their sets. This is crazy, and I put it on Reddit, and it got a decent amount of traction. There was one video that had a lot of views, and people were like, "Oh, that's pretty crazy! Like, I never would have thought that." I went and found some of your other music, and it's like, "Wow, how do you put this?
How does this happen?"
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know how it happened.
It just happened once. We just kept doing it.
We just kept doing it, and now all of a sudden we have this jam song that has this.
Now we have to.
Yeah, we have this jam song that has like a basic format, sort of. It generally goes like this for a while, and then somewhere it does this little like ka-chunk gear change, and then it changes into another thing, and then it turns into this really like we were talking, just trippy jam at the end. And like that was where I started doing a lot more experimenting, because that gave me the ability to play with somebody else and make it all up on the fly, and just like, we're in this key, try to make it sound good, and just kind of fart around a little bit. And I started like playing around with key changing, which by the end of the jams now it starts to get a little airy and dreamy feeling and stuff like that, because I started changing keys of what I'm doing and really kind of trying to explore. And that's like another cool thing, is I never thought, I mean, punk band's one thing, but I never thought I'd be like jamming in a jam band. I mean, we're definitely not a jam band, but I mean, if you come to some of our practices, sometimes we just
But we could.
yeah, sometimes it's just like, well, we just played 7 minutes of stuff that we all just made up until it kind of fell apart into nothing.
Yeah.
But
It's too bad we don't record any of that.
yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh, I've talked with other people about that. How it's almost important to have like a recorder always going, no matter what, even if you want to delete most of it. But it's still just like there was this one cool thing that happened, and I wished we were recording. But if you're always recording, then you at least, yeah. I mean, obviously, but that's also a lot of work and time and data, and you got to dig through all this stuff. And I guess if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. Because
You'll do it.
Here we are sitting in our, in my car talking, and I'm recording it. So whatever, I guess. So I think we got through all the hot spots, and we got just a couple minutes short of an hour. So if there's anything you want to say, anything you want
let's
to
see.
give the shout outs to, because we already talked about sleepover,
We got to give
Three
some
Finger
shout
Betty,
outs. Sleepover, Three Finger Betty.
Shit Kickers.
Shit Kickers, we're kind of on hiatus. Kale got a new job. Jeff's doing great. He went back to college,
Cool.
so he's doing real good. But we're not done. We haven't practiced in a while, but we're not done. We'll probably play a show this summer, I bet.
There's the bassist.
Our
for
bassist
band.
is harassing us right now.
From outside the car. What a goofball. Someday I'll get him on the podcast.
Good luck getting him to talk. but
Yeah. Well, I think I might have some tricks up my sleeve. I've been,
he's known you long enough. He might talk to you now.
yeah, and I've been trying to find some different ways of getting different formats of content out and around, and I think I might have something up my sleeve coming up later. We'll see. I've always joked about it a little bit, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So you got the 3 bands,
Yeah.
and then
I think there's the punk scene's rising back up around Des Moines too. I'm into the Eleanors,
yeah,
they're fun.
They're always at shows. Love it.
the Astro Bastards' new name,
Monsoon
Lagoon. Those guys are. I don't think those guys are going anywhere.
Monsoon Lagoon and the Pontoon Platoon.
Yep.
Yep. So
There's and all those bands from Ottumwa.
oh god, yeah. I mean, even that
Coming
we
up here.
played at that Punk Oi pizza show, and there were a couple.
Oh, that was great.
yeah, that was great.
The
There-
Shitiots.
the Shitiots. Yeah, there was a couple bands from the Omaha-ish area.
Yeah.
There
Make Your Mark. They don't play a ton of shows, but they're local. They're great.
Yeah.
What they do.
Yeah.
I think one of them. It might have been the show where it was a trio. I don't know if you could make that one because it was a weeknight, but there was a band called Victimized Youth. I'd never heard of them, and I was like, these guys are punk as shit. This is fucking awesome.
Cool. That's awesome.
I would love to play with them again.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is it just depends on trying to find the right bands to play the right shows with, and I mean most of us will play with anybody, but you just gotta track everybody down and get everybody on the same page.
Find enough friends, and all of a sudden you got a scene.
Yep. Yeah, man, and I feel like it's coming together quite nicely down here. I feel like the music scene in general is starting to converge together. In certain areas, you can see a lot of bands really supporting each other and talking about one another and really giving each other props, which is cool. I love seeing that. Some of the coolest things you can see on the Three Finger Betty page is not only us sharing our own events, but like sharing when Clint and I played that Unity show.
Exactly.
It's just like, oh, a couple of dudes in our band are playing this show, because it's not just about Three Finger Betty. Punk has always been that kind of weird thing where even though everybody's anarchists and stuff, they're all like weirdly like supporting each other. Like all the
It's us
punk,
against them.
yeah, it's like I'm gonna wear the shirt from the other band that kicks ass, on the
yeah.
show while I'm playing, and that's what I always try to do at shows for the most part, is wear a different band's shirt, and if nothing else,
We got Hold for Swank.
Hold for Swank. They're actually playing a
Wow.
show tonight too, and that's up in Fort Dodge, and those guys don't play too many shows.
Nobody's wearing a TV cop shirt on this show. That's rare.
Yeah, it is rare. I bypassed the 4 in my drawer. Yeah, man. TV Cop's one of the best.
Oh, I screwed up. I didn't change my shirt. I will apologize to Morbo. I told him I'd wear his shirt tonight, and I forgot.
Oh man, yeah, that was a heck of a good podcast. Really entertaining as far as from the feedback I've gotten from people that weren't expecting exactly what it was. So
Guarantee, Morbo, I will wear your shirt at the Fremont.
all
next week.
right, sweet. So we got a show coming up this weekend with Three Finger Betty. We will be at the Fremont. Check that out. Go to facebook.com, Three Finger Betty. Anything else, John?
Not much. I can't think anything. I just saw Jeff roll a cabinet by, so it might be time to bring stuff inside.
Yeah, let's start hauling some stuff inside.
Cool.
All
Well,
right.
this was fun.
Thanks, man. Real appreciate it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Not too often I have repeat guests, but I'll tell you what, John Waugh, he's a good guy, so I figured I'd have him come back. He's a busy guy, too, doing the whole Three Finger Betty thing. He does the majority of the writing for the band, so hats off to him for doing that. It's really, really cool. I never would have had an opportunity to record anything had it not been for John doing all the hard work he does for Three Finger Betty, and I'll tell you what, everybody in Three Finger Betty camp is doing their best to support the band any way they can. I'll tell you what, it's a fun place to be. It's a fun camp. We love playing shows. We're gonna be playing a show this weekend at the Fremont in Des Moines. We got a couple shows lined up for 2020 that are out of the Des Moines area. So if you're outside of Des Moines, hit us up. We want to come play in your town. We've got all sorts of stuff. We've been able to bring our own PA places. Sometimes bring bands, our buddies with us, and just make a whole day out of it. So it's kind of cool. Check it out. Go to Three Finger Betty, at Facebook. We're at Three Finger Betty pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to drop links for the sleepover down below because John's in the sleepover. I like those guys too. I share a couple bandmates with them now. At one point in time, I was even playing bass with the bassist of the sleepover was playing in Unity for a while. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of nice to have these people that in the community that you've been able to share the stage with in one fashion or another. It's really kind of a neat thing. Hey, you know what else is kind of neat? Going to www.audiblefarm.com, checking out everything we got there. There's links to the YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like I said, everything's pretty much just at Audible Farm. You can check that out. Really awesome stuff. There's a player in there, so if you want to just go there, you can go to www.audiblefarm.com and just play the podcast from there. If you're at work or wherever you're at. I guess if you can listen at work, but then again, if you have a computer that you're listening from, I don't know. Anyways, it's totally up to you if you want to check it out or not. There's links to everything. If you want to find something, I've got links to our partners there as well as all sorts of other good stuff. So check it out, www.audiblefarm.com. Hey, did you see the post yesterday? We've got Audible Farm sweatshirts. They might have even sold out by now because I'm pre-recording this, but I'll tell you what, if you want one, you better get one because I don't have very many. So there's Audible Farm podcast sweatshirts from small to double extra large. They are, just check it out on our Facebook, www.facebook.com. Go to @audiblefarm, and that's us. We will have a post pinned to the top. You can check it out. Buy yourselves a sweatshirt. Brr, it's cold outside. Stay warm, everybody. I want to say thanks to everybody that's listening. I also want to say thanks to people that are spreading the word of Audible Farm via Facebook invites and word of mouth. We've had added about 100 likes in the last week, so that's pretty wild. I want to say hats off to a couple people, but I'm going to potentially have them on the podcast, so maybe I'll thank them when they get on the podcast. You know what? If you want to get me anything for Christmas, you know what you can get? You can just invite someone to like the Facebook page or something, or tell someone about the podcast. That's plenty for me. I don't really need anything else in my life. I'm full. I'm full up right now as it sits. So I just want to say thanks to everybody that's listening. Thanks to Couchtown Coffee. Nom 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 nom. Code word Betty this week, guys. Save 20% on Couchtown Coffee. They'll ship it right to your house. You can't beat that. I also want to say thanks to all of our partners. Go to www.audiblefarm.com. Scroll to the bottom. Check out all our partners, everybody. Lots of people kind of putting in the good word for us. So I really want to say thanks to all those guys. Go back in time. Check out some of the older episodes. Tell your friends about the podcast if you like it. Really appreciate it, everybody. I will check you guys next week with another amazing guest. Peace.